so.
He's not on a call?
That doesn't sound like it.
Okay. You on a call?
No.
No?
No.
Okay. Carbon or aluminum?
Ooh, I'm old school, man. I'm a carbon guy.
Carbon guy?
I'm aluminum.
Aluminum?
Guy. Aluminum guy. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Perfect. Love it. Thanks, Jesse. I don't know my way around up here. Carbon or aluminum?
Carbon.
Carbon?
Is that the carbon?
Yes.
Yeah, I like the carbon.
This is nice in here.
I know, right?
Yeah.
I like the vibe.
Uh-huh. Very nice. Cool. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bah!
We have beacon.
Carbon or aluminum?
Carbon.
Okay.
That was quick.
That was quick. Decisive.
We're running.
Oh, he's locked.
Jesse. Come in.
Hi, Mark.
Hi.
I thought it was locked. Carbon or aluminum?
Just in general,
Yeah, which one?
I usually use a carbon.
Carbon.
Yeah.
Okay. We're what, 3-1 now?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, cool. Next.
How long are you gonna keep that shot, Tom?
Go get him.
Which one? Carbon or aluminum?
Ooh, carbon lighter weight. Yeah, lighter weight.
Aluminum.
That's right.
Yeah,
See?
aluminum. Little bit of weight added there is perfect for dampening the vibrations and everything else. And that thing is bulletproof.
Carbon or aluminum?
Aluminum.
Nice.
Yep.
See?
I'm an expert.
The real ones. Joshua.
Oh. Carbon.
Carbon?
Yeah. It looks way cooler. That's all that matters.
It does.
If you look cool in the field, you're doing something right.
Yeah. See, again, I think she likes the glass handheld. No, she's on aluminum. She's on carbon.
Good job, Ted. Good job.
Hello. I think we got the whole office. We don't have a lot here today. There's just something about this thing. I like the sounds it makes. I love spooking deer when I, open my tripod. Because that happens all the time.
Beep boop. Hey everybody, I am Mark with Outdoorsmans, and today we are going to cover the differences in carbon versus aluminum tripods. The basics. We're not going to get too in depth with this. Alright, so let's start off with the very obvious that everybody probably knows at this point is the weight difference. We have our Carbon and Negra standard tripod here, and we have our aluminum standard tripod right here with the exact same head. Both got tripod holsters on them. They're basically the exact same tripod. The difference in weight between these two is about 8 ounces. They don't have any height differences. They are identical tripods, just legs made out of different materials, tubes made out of different materials. It's about an 8-ounce savings between the two. A lot of people, but honestly, when we talk about it and we tell them those weight differences, they're actually kind of surprised that it's not more. I think there's this misconception of carbon being this magical material that weighs nothing. It has negative weight. It floats in the air. But in reality, it's closer to aluminum than aluminum is to steel, basically, as far as like weight differences go. So when you use carbon, it's for the small amount of weight savings, but it is also for how close it is in other properties to aluminum. You can obviously use other materials that are lighter, but don't share the same other structural properties that aluminum does, like carbon does. That's why they use it in a lot of automotive capacity. It has amazing heat resistance, and it can hold its form under massive amounts of duress and stress. So carbon versus aluminum, carbon's lighter, aluminum's a little bit heavier, but carbon is very, very close to the same structural kind of capacities that aluminum is. The other glaringly obvious one that everybody is fairly aware of at this point is the cost difference between the two. Aluminum is much cheaper. That is because it is much cheaper to make. It is much more simple to make. It's been being pumped out of mills for the last, I'm not going to throw a number out there because I'll embarrass myself, a very, very long time. Aluminum has been being made the way that it is today. Carbon is a newer material. It's a newer manufacturing style, and it is much more complicated, much more labor intensive. It takes a lot of different things going on to actually create these tubes of carbon. We have, mandrels they need to be wrapped around, and then forming processes, and it's a lot of stuff going on, whereas this is simply a bunch of hot metal extruded out of a piece of steel, and you get a round tube afterwards, and then you chop it and you ship it to us. It's very simple. It's a very simple material. So the cost difference, it can obviously vary, but it's usually 60 to 100% more expensive in a finished product. The bare cost of the product is tenfold more expensive than aluminum. So you will most of the time always see products made out of carbon or carbon materials be much more expensive than their aluminum counterparts. If they're not, that is actually a really good sign that you're either not buying real carbon, it's just plastic with a carbon film on top of it, or extremely, extremely cheap carbon that is can't be one layer, but 2 layers, and it's not going to hold up very well. All right, so now let's get into what these things can actually do. What makes carbon better than aluminum, or what makes aluminum better than carbon? And here's the answer: neither is better than the other, in my opinion, but they are different. So aluminum, a lot of people are familiar with. People have been using aluminum products for a long time. They are extremely durable, especially an anodized, aluminum with extremely tight tolerances and good machining like ours is. You're going to see a massive increase in durability over composite materials like carbon. It can take more of a beating and it can keep going. The main difference when it does take a beating is it doesn't bounce back. It's like permanent deformation is a lot lower than composite materials. So when it takes a hit, it's not going to bounce back from that hit as easily as something like a plastic or a carbon material can. It can take a hit and it can bounce right off of it, comes back to its original form, and you can keep on going. These legs or any of these components, mainly the tubes though, the tubes are really what we're referring to here. Billet machined aluminum is pretty much indestructible. A solid chunk of aluminum isn't going anywhere. It's not going to get hurt by pretty much anything. But the tubes themselves, them being hollow, if they do take a hit, it can dent them. And in a system where a tube is sliding inside of another tube, that can be catastrophic. That can be bad. If they do take enough of a hit or a strong enough hit, aluminum will snap at some point. And so that is its downside over stronger materials like steels and titaniums and things like that. Is it will snap eventually under lighter loads than some of those others, but it is much lighter, so that's why everybody uses aluminum. But it can take a ton of beating over the years, and it can take small impacts and stuff that's normally what we're going to be doing. We're accidentally going to be dropping them off the bed of the truck or tipping them over in the field, or just accidentally scraping them against rocks and things like that. It's going to hold up to that for a very, very long time. It is also more rigid, so it flexes less. When in this configuration, it's not a big deal. Both of these tripods are going to perform very similarly, but when fully extended with a fully extended center post with a rifle or a big spotting scope on top of it, the difference between these two tripods is going to be fairly noticeable. The aluminum will seem more steady and more rigid because aluminum just in general is a more rigid material than composite materials. So onto the benefits of carbon. They're basically the flopping of what I just said. It is lighter. it can take those smaller hits and bounce back, but it can take the larger hits and bounce back. And that is, it's one big, structural advantage over aluminum, is it's not going to permanently deform as easily as aluminum does. And then especially in our products, we use carbon and Negra. That is going to help that permanent deformation even more, although it technically doesn't not let that permanent deformation happen. It just kind of helps you limp out of the field if it ever does happen. Carbon snaps, and that is all there is to it. It does not deform ever. You're never going to see a dent in a carbon tube. If you do, again, that's just aluminum wrapped in a carbon wrap. It's not actually carbon. So you can have catastrophic failures a little bit easier than you can with aluminum products, but the weight savings is what people are usually going for in a carbon product. And again, just noting on what I said earlier, it is going to be slightly less stable. I don't like to say that because it sounds like a bad thing, but in reality, it's something you need to know if you are going to be using these products, is you're not getting that weight savings for free. You are going to have to give up a little bit when it comes to that. I personally use carbon for pretty much everything I do nowadays, unless I know that I'm not going to be carrying it very often, or I want just extreme stability. If I know all I'm going to be doing off the tripod is shooting or using massive optics, I will use an aluminum setup kind of like this. But mainly I'm using carbon. And I do have to sacrifice that little bit of height sometimes for a little bit more stability. In heavy winds, in extremely uneven terrains or loose dirt and things like that, if I do want a more stable setup, I do have to just shrink my tripod down, maybe sit and kneel instead of standing at full height with heavy optics and things like that. But there's a trade-off there, and I've decided that trade-off is worth the weight that I saved there. So other than that, unless we want to get into some science that I barely understand and I have to have AI explain to me every once in a while, that is the general differences between carbon and aluminum products. There's no clear winner. It's very evident we still make both of these products for a reason. One is not better than the other, but they definitely are different from each other, and these are just the differences you need to consider when you are going to purchase a product like these.